What is going on, everyone? I just finished up listening to the Massachusetts Gaming Commission meeting about limits, and this has been an ongoing issue for about a year now when they first started these conversations. And this is the first meeting that they've had the sports books actually show up to the meetings and have some input. So over the course of a year, there have been talks of these sports book operators maybe inaccurately limiting players that are just recreational. That's kind of the biggest concern that the MA Gaming Commission has is, just standard recreational bettors getting limited by these books and them resourcing to illegal books instead because they're getting limited on these Massachusetts books. Obviously, if people start betting into these illegal markets, then Massachusetts doesn't get any of the revenue from the sports betting books and the profits that they make. So obviously, that's a concern for Massachusetts, but they also want to make sure that these sports books have integrity and they're not just limiting people that are making money. So I'll start there by mentioning that I myself I'm called a advantage player to these books. I've been limited on every single book in Massachusetts. The ones that show up to the meeting were Caesars, Fanatics, FanDuel, MGM, and DraftKings, I believe. So I heard a little bit from, I'm not exactly sure which position represented each of these books, but they all had some really good points. And I actually think that I side mostly with how the operators have handled this. Some operators, I think, do better jobs than the others. So we're going to go into a little bit of detail here. But first, I'm going to talk about how do these books identify advantaged players? And they claim that, they don't just limit someone because they're winning money. So I understand that that's actually not how they find players. I 100% agree with that. My one thing that I would like to point out is it is basically mathematically impossible to make money sports long term without having some type of an advantage. Okay, these recreational sports books or retail books, we could call them. They're adding 5 to 10% vig to a lot of their markets. So for you to overcome, a 10% edge that these sports books have on you, and then not only do you overcome that 5 to 10%, but then you need to have more accurate odds or pricing than they do. You don't just randomly watch a couple football games and be able to determine the outcome of these events. You have to have some type of advanced models or algorithms or some type of information that the public doesn't have to actually make money. So for these books to say that they aren't limiting, just because the people are winning, it makes sense. But long term, like my grandma could place 100 bets on a sports book and be profitable. That they know that she doesn't have a real edge, so she's not going to get limited. Long term, though, if she continues to just randomly place bets like any recreational bettor does, then she'll lose. So yes, there are people that are winning money, but that doesn't mean they have an edge. And the operators know that, and that's why they don't limit them, because they know if they continue to just let these people keep betting, eventually they're going to lose their money. That's why they're happy to not limit them. But I'll briefly talk about how retail books identify advantage bettors, like I was getting to. So quickly, I'll go over this little list I have. So the number one way, or there's really like 6 reasons that they talked about, and the operators were really transparent this time around. There's certain things that are proprietary to each book and how they find advantage players, but the agreement across all books were kind of these basic concept. So the meeting today was like over an hour long. So I'm trying to give you my perspective as an advantage bettor and just like quickly wrap up or summarize what was said during this meeting. So, all right, back to how they identify advantage players. Number one is by players that are attacking low liquidity markets over and over, or just markets that are really volatile, which are low liquidity markets. So that would just be like, first basket scored, real like Korean baseball leagues, like stuff that the normal bettor isn't going to go bet on. So that's one way to find advantage players, because advantage players can find discrepancies or an edge in these types of markets that the sports books, don't focus that much of their attention on because they are lower liquidity markets. Number two is quickly, this will get you flagged if you are an advantage bettor, is just changing your bet size. So if you're betting $25, pretty flat betting over and over on all these different types of bets, and then all of a sudden the sports book sees you place a $5,000 wager on some line that has an edge, they obviously know, you're taking advantage of them in some way. So that'll get you flagged, or at least have your account looked into. Another reason is if a player takes advantage of error lines. So, like you said, one of these books said that they have tens of thousands of different betting opportunities or markets every day for someone to bet. Their technology isn't perfect. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to have errors. So if people are, exploiting their errors, let's just say, every book has something priced at plus 100 odds, and then Caesars opens up at plus, one, or like 10 to 1 or something. Obviously, if there's a group of people that go hit that error line, they have an edge. That'll get you flagged quickly. The fourth one, I actually haven't even heard of people doing this before, which is surprising because I know a lot of advantage bettors, is courtside betting. And this kind of makes sense too. But if you're going to a game and you're placing bets, before the books can actually grab that information and change their odds, you're placing bets at live events, you can have an advantage there. So they have ways to obviously identify those type of players and limit them. The one thing that they did say is, and the operators did kind of say this too, is, they might just have to eat that cost of people doing this, because there's a delay from, your TV. If people are watching this game live on TV, there's a delay from what's actually happening. So for these books to make the lines accurate compared to that delay, they kind of have to give the advantage to people that are live at the event. Never really thought of that, but it makes a lot of sense. So the Gaming Commission was like, why don't you just shut down basically live betting if you can't keep up with it? And they basically said, that is on us. We will take action from these courtside bettors just because the majority of people are betting at home watching TV. So it makes sense to me. That was a good point, and something I've actually never really heard of. So that was really interesting that was brought up. Another reason is just if they somehow assume that a player has some type of edge of information or just a model that works better than their books. These retail books, in my opinion, if you have some type of model that is better than pricing their lines, I think that's kind of on them. But so you can be limited if they have some type of information and they think that you have a better model than them. So I'm not that one's a little vague. I'm not really sure what that would mean. Or if they think that you have some information from the league or something, prior to their lines moving. And then the last one here is when you misuse their promo. So you can say you have a 50% profit boost on, the Patriots game. You use that 50% profit boost on the Patriots, and then you could just bet, let's just say they're playing the Seahawks. You could bet the Seahawks also for an equal amount of money or a little bit different to guarantee a profit. They don't like people just locking in guaranteed profits. So that's how they limit players. And then I'm going to quickly just talk about my limits on every single book because I have experienced every book. And I'll tell you which books I think do a better job at limiting people that are making money or have some type of edge and some that don't. So we'll start with my favorite book. And this is pretty standard across the league. I think FanDuel does a great job of limiting professional bettors or advantage bettors, but not making it so it's useless for me to bet into their lines or other people to bet. So how books limit is they base it on, they have a standard limit for everyone, right? So let's just say FanDuel has for Patriots money line bet or just a football NFL line money line bet, they have a standard limit of $10,000, right? If I'm an advantage player, they're going to give me a fraction of their limit. So let's just say I think on FanDuel I have like 25% limit. So if the limit on that bet is $10,000 to the public, then I will only be able to place $2,500 because I'm at 25% limits. FanDuel has a really large amount of customers and they make a lot of money. So they're able to maybe allow larger limits. And that's why, maybe I like that book better. But smaller books, let's say like MGM, at least when it comes to proportion size of how many customers they have and how much money they make. And this is mostly me just speaking for Massachusetts because that's what I'm familiar with. But I know FanDuel and DraftKings have like a huge hold over the market, and a lot of the other books are kind of fighting over that third spot. But like MGM, when it comes to player props, some of those lower liquidity markets, I've been limited down to pennies on it. But that probably means that, say I'm at 5% limits on MGM, that probably means that they're only letting regular recreational bettors place, $50, $100 bets on these low liquidity markets. Meanwhile, FanDuel maybe will still let me get off $100 because they're putting these low liquidity markets at $1,000. So it's based on a percent of the the standard limit there that each recreational bettor gets. The other thing too I've heard, and this is brought up too, is that there are VIP programs that these sports books have. So they actually increase your limit. So if I open up a brand new sports account and I go into bet FanDuel for a money line, I might be able to get off $10,000. But if they see that I am a recreational bettor with a ton of money and I'm kind of just throwing it out there like crazy, they're going to upgrade me to VIP. And guess what? My limits are going to go up. So now when the normal person bet $10,000, now I'm going to be able to bet 20,000, 100,000. So they kind of take advantage of their business. So they're trying to make money. So I don't blame them at all. They're trying to take advantage of the bettors that have money to blow, and they want to view this as entertainment, which is fine. They're in the business of making money. The other thing too that all the books, they all take pride in what we call responsible gaming, and this is same way that these books are identifying the advantage players. They also are looking out for people that are spending more money than they have, or just damaging themselves by sports betting. So it's important, and all these books are priding themselves in how good their responsible gaming department is too. So that's something that these books look into. So I got a little bit more on my list here, some notes that I took. The goal of the Gaming Commission here is basically they don't want the recreational bettors to get limited or caught up with or classified as advantage players. That's basically what their whole goal is. They also want transparency from the operators to the customers when someone is limited. So a lot of these books, I don't think I've ever actually received an email from anyone besides Fanatics. When I first got limited on Fanatics, I got an email saying, you've been limited. You will see just limit decreases, whatever. It's fine. But none of the other books gave me that email or reached out to me in any way to let me know. Personally, I don't really think it's a big deal. I know that I'm being limited when I go to type a bet and it won't let me do it. But Fanatics did make up a good point here too, is they started rolling out emails to all these sports bettors that were getting limited. And, there was nothing constructive with these emails when they got replies. Like, I'm sure they were just getting ripped apart with people, just screaming at them basically. So I think Fanatics said they stopped telling bettors that they were limited because it was, there was nothing productive coming out of it. So I don't blame them there either. The one thing that some books do better than others too is with FanDuel, if I go to place a bet and it's a market I'm limited in, so I go to place $1,000 bet and they say it denies me, and then it'll say, no, you can place a $1,200 bet, right? So that's a good job by FanDuel. Fanatics does it too, and MGM and DraftKings does it actually. But Caesars actually is the only book that I've noticed where I'll go place a bet, say for $100, and it'll just say your bet is not accepted. And then I'll go, okay, let me try $90, not accepted. Let me try $80, not accepted. So I have to figure out every single market what my limit is, and I kind of have a good idea now because I've done it so much. But these other books are pretty good where I go to place a bet, it says, hey, you can't place that wager. This is the max bet you can place. Real quick and easy, doesn't bother me at all, besides the fact that I'm getting limited, but no big deal. So some books do that better than others. And I'll say one more thing too on when it comes to my limits. So I think MGM's actually the worst. When I was talking about this earlier, but player props and low limit markets, like I'm down to like pennies or a couple of dollars on some of these markets. But books like Fanatics, they basically do a flat $10 bet. So like the lowest bet possible is $10, which is fine. I think it's good to have. I think that maybe this is the middle ground where it's like, hey, you can limit profitable sports bettors, but also hold yourself accountable to at least take $50 wagers at a minimum here. So Fanatics, they, instead of giving you pennies, the bottom bet I've seen is a $10 bet. I haven't seen anyone with lower limits than just flat $10 lines. but it's kind of like when you're playing blackjack with an edge that can just flat bet you. What else do we got here? I don't know if I have anything else on my list. That kind of wraps it up. One other thing that the Gaming Commission had a question on was why not, and they said this is how sportsbooks used to do, why not use advantage players as a indicator that the line should be priced a different way, and just, everyone will have the same limits, and you just use the advantage players, their bets as, the truth, and that they know what they're doing. So the sports books do still do this, but they limit you. So like I said, if me and 20 other advantage players go to place a bet, we're going to get limited. But now the book can use that information. They see myself as an advantage, flagged as an advantage account, and 20 other bettors flagged as an advantage player hitting a line. Now they can, pause that line or adjust those odds without even allowing me to place, ridiculous amount of money. So it works good for them because they still get, my information into their lines without having to, risk that much because my limits are low. So what the operators are telling them to do is, just take the same limit for everyone and move your line equally when the bets start coming in, and that's kind of how some books operate. These are what we call sharp books. They're like Circa and Vegas, Pinnacle and Bookmaker. These are all books that move like that. But here's how they do it: they don't take this massive vig like the retail books do. They take like a 2 to a 3% vig or tax that they add to the line, and once a line starts getting a lot of action on one side, they keep adjusting it. So the money is always 50-50 on both sides of the line. And they basically lock in their 2 to 3% profit that they're charging for the VIG no matter what, because they're keeping the money equal. So that works great for them. Problem is, they're only making 2 to 3% of all the money they bring in. And Massachusetts taxed the hell out of the profits that the sportsbook make. So Circa, Bookmaker, Pinnacle, they're not going to want to open up an online sports book in Massachusetts because they're just not going to be able to bring in enough profits to, be able to pay the taxes and actually make money. Meanwhile, these retail books are making 10% on every bet that you place because of their VIG, so they make more profits. So kind of a thing that, it's tough because it would be great to have that book, but that's not going to happen because these sport books need to make that much money. So that's kind of a quick summary. I feel like there was a lot more that I wanted to talk about that I didn't get into. So if you guys have any questions or you just want to have a conversation with me, leave some comments down below. I have to give props to the Massachusetts Gaming Commission, though. They're doing a hell of a job when really looking into these books. And I can already tell I was listening to the first meeting, and you could tell that they've educated themselves so much when it comes to sports betting and limits and all that stuff. So they've done a hell of a good job. They're asking, the perfect questions and everything. So they're doing good. Obviously, this is government driven, so it takes a long time to get regulations done. But now the sports books are working with the Gaming Commission, being a little bit more open, and it seems like they're moving in the right direction. My own personal opinion, I kind of agree with the operators a little bit more, where they kind of already have it dialed in to where, they can limit players. It's only 1% of 1% of the players betting into the retail books are limited. So when there's no reason to adjust anything based on the 1% when 99% of the people are happy. And the other thing too is the Gaming Commission is saying that they're receiving all of these emails from recreational bettors that are getting limited. Do I believe that? No. I've been sports betting for a year and a half. I have tons of friends that are just recreational bettors. I mean, tons of friends that are just betting recreationally. No one's ever seen a limit. I have a few friends that are advantage players. They know they're advantage players. They're finding edges and they're limited. And, it's pretty cut and dry. The operators wouldn't say that there are 0% of recreational bettors categorized as advantage players and getting limited, because no one wants to say there's no chance. Obviously, maybe if, they have a million customers, there's a couple of them, but is it worth changing a law because, one or two people, got categorized in with an advantage player? So I don't know, but that's just my kind of take on it. So that basically wraps it up. Like I said, leave some comments below. I hope you guys like this video. Go check out my other videos. I teach you guys how I make money sports betting. Hopefully, these books can figure out and maybe increase the limits on us a little bit. I think that's kind of my opinion, is that the book should just have a minimum, just let us bet $50 minimum. And, you guys are making so much money on all these other sports bettors out there that are just recreational bettors. You're taking advantage of them. Let us grab what we can. So, all right. I hope you guys like this video. Check out my other ones. I'll see you guys later.